gentlemen, we've got our final presentation, and again this is from a well-known elite endurance racer with the name of Brian Gatens. We have a pre-recorded video that you can enjoy, and we're looking forward. And then after that, those of you who still got some energy, we will have time for an athlete's discussion. So if you're not too hungry yet for the lunch, we will have that after the session. So let's finally sit back and relax and listen very carefully to this closing keynote address.
Brian Gatens here from the Dark Zone Adventure Racing Podcast. Delighted to be a part of the International Adventure Racing Conference. Thank you to Heidi for asking me to be involved. Quite the honor to play my role here, offering this keynote address. Not lost upon me when I look at the schedule that the second speaker, more like the first speaker after introductions, was Nathan Fave. Not uncommon for Nathan to be the first person to finish something across the finish line, and not uncommon for me to be towards the back. So congratulations to Nathan for giving a great address before. By this point, he's usually home by now with his feet up. Maybe he's doing the haka. I don't know. But it's great to follow in his footsteps and all the other speakers we've had today during the conference. Great innovative idea to have this setting for us to get together, whether in person in South Africa or, of course, the internet. We couldn't ask for a nicer crowd to be here, and it's my honor to give the keynote address. I want to begin by congratulating Stefan for an excellent Adventure Racing World Series Championship, South Africa. Big race, big land. We talked a lot about the course. We had a podcast about it, and clearly an ambitious race and a very successful one. So congratulations to Stefan and his whole team. We know that a ton of work was going on there. Congratulations to Heidi as she wraps up another year as the CEO of the Adventure Racing World Series. Not an easy job, right? A lot of people, a lot of personalities, a lot of races, a lot of time zones. 6 hours, New Jersey to South Africa. I've learned that math pretty easily. And special congratulations to Santiago for his able stewardship of the 2025 World Championship in Ecuador. I had a chance to do the 2021 edition of his race down there, and it was fantastic. Great people, great events, volunteers. The landscape was beautiful. You couldn't ask for a more challenging setting to have a World Championship, and it's going to be successful. It's going to be big. And congratulations to him and his whole team. I look forward to being involved in some capacity, either as a racer or as part of the media. You really can't go wrong doing one of his races in Ecuador, and it's great for him and it's great for the sport. So congratulations. Now, the keynote address, right? Expectation is that I wrap up sort of what's been going on here the entire time, right? We've had a variety of speakers about the rules and panel and mapping and what's going to happen with the sport and developing teams and all of that and all that information. And how do we bring it all together? What do we do? Well, I think it's not uncommon to return to the idea that what makes for a successful sport is what makes for a successful team. If you think about it, the adventure racing community, worldwide, international, many states, many types of races, shorter races, bigger races, multi-day, expedition races, whatever you want to call them. We're part of one large community, one large family, one large group that works together. And so I think the most important thing I could lead off with right now is to mention the idea that we have to continue to focus on teamwork as an adventure racing community. I remember that my father, who was a towering figure in my life, would always talk about how any organization that was worth its salt would never, ever, ever fall apart because of outside forces. Never people pushing in on it that would take care of those organizations. Rather, it was the inability for the organization to govern and care for itself. And problems always came from the inside. So we need to keep remembering that we're a team who works together, who takes care of each other, that it's all about teamwork, and we communicate often with each other. We never fail for the ability to write an email or to reach out to somebody via WhatsApp or a phone call or a website or whatever it might be. I think it's important as a sport, just as with the team, that we keep communicating with each other about our desires and our races and our goals. Nothing is more disheartening to me as I talk about the adventure racing community, and as I learn about it, when I hear that the members of the community, they don't get along. They can't collaborate, they can't work together. So please avoid that as we move into the future. A lot of success in our sport now. Races popping up all over the place. New race directors coming on board. We've recently had 2 brand new races here in America, 24-hour races. Racers making the transition into race directors, working with other people and land managers and doing all of that. A second thing that teammates do is they keep an eye on each other. And what I mean by that is that during a race, you look to your right, you look to your left, and you look to see if a teammate of yours is having a hard time. And if he or she is, you pause and you talk, and you get some food in them, and you get some drink in them, and you have a chance for them to sort of catch their breath. Let's do that with each other too inside of our sport. Let's keep an eye on each other as we move forward together. Let's check on each other in terms of the race directors, the racers, how we're supporting the racers, all of that. And if someone's having a hard time, let's take care of them. Let's make it a point that as a sport, that if any member of our community, whether it be the media, whether it be a racer, whether it be a race director, a volunteer organization, that if they're having a hard time, that we're there for each other, that we make it a point to communicate and to talk often. And of course, don't let people wander off by themselves. Always use communication as a tool. That if you think someone's having a hard time and moving in a direction that's not good for them, their organization, or their sport, make it a point to reach out to them. As an adventure racing community, and a big part of my keynote address is to mention this, is that we have to work together as a team. Teamwork is essential. Another interesting item I've learned in my preparation for this keynote is I talked to several race directors, and I talked about the idea, like, how do they define success as a group? Some race directors define success as having a lot of returning racers come back year after year. I know that Rootstock Racing's The Endless Mountains had a very successful second edition this year with about a 75% racer return rate. That's a big 5-day race, Pennsylvania, challenging race. 3 out of every 4 people came back. So credit to them for that. Some race directors credit the success by expanding the size of the field, by having more racers come back the next year. And that's always a balancing act. I talked to one race director who wants hundreds of racers come to his race, and he has a lot of strategies to increase participation but not take away from the sport and not make it too easy in terms of navigation, things like that. He did mention that a hard stop for him was always paper navigation, that some race directors were toying with the idea of electronic navigation. For him, pencil and paper, holding a 2-dimensional item in the hand was essential for that. So that's 2 ways to define success. Another way to define success is make races really hard. In America, we have America's Toughest Race by Bend Racing. They advertise who they are, and they know who they are. And that's what they do. They have a tough race, and they know exactly what they want to be and how they want to be it, and credit to them for embracing that. So it's important for us as a sport that we know what we want to define success as. And that's a conversation to have among ourselves. I think as a racer, for the racers out there, we define success as doing our best during a race, working hard, being together, training for the race, working on navigation, our food, taking care of our bodies, and throwing as much as we can at the course and being as strong as we can during the course of the race, and really not giving in too easily when things get challenging. Race directors are known for the ability to be tough and to hang in there, and adventure racers are right behind them with that. That they are, we're a different type of people, and we like challenge, we like when things are difficult, and we don't back down easy. And race directors should recognize that. There's a natural desire to increase participation by making the sport easier. And I have heard some race directors talk about that they don't want to do that they want to find that balance between making the races challenging enough that the adventure racer feels like it's difficult and it's hard, but not so challenging that they get blown out the back of the race. And that's always a hard thing to do, and it's not easy to be a race director. So thank you to the race directors that are out there. A third thing to talk about is that we do have an obligation to remove barriers to the sport, that we want to make certain that people who want to adventure race can, and we have to do our best to lower what keeps them out of it, whether it be access to equipment, whether it be the race fees that we charge, and obviously that's always a balance, right? Race directors aren't charities, and we have to figure out what we're going to do there, and that's hard. Groups that are underrepresented in sports deserve an opportunity to get mentors and to come into the racing and to practice and to do what they can there. But if we love this sport, we don't want to build a bigger wall, but we want to build a longer table. We want more people to be able to take part in it. I'm happy to share that when I speak to racers, and I talk to a lot of racers, both formally as part of the Dark Zone and informally as just someone curious about the race, time and time again, racers make it a point to talk about how welcome they feel. There's a wide variety of sport that's out there for people. And adventure racing, and not to compare to other sports, and I won't mention them by name, but adventure racing participants and adventure racing organizations are very welcoming to others. The people who are newer to the sport are invited to take part, are invited to participate, are invited to come back, and nobody is made to feel bad about their results in a race. And that's an amazing thing about the sport, is that while we do publish standings, the standings very often are secondary to the experience. I think that's a great thing about our sport, and I do want to be a bit cautious in this keynote that I want to encourage the community to avoid trying to be like other sports in order to gain growth. There are sports that are very, very popular in America, that are very popular around the world, that are like adventure racing, but are not adventure racing. We have to know who we are, and we have to stick to it. We have to brand ourselves that way too. It's very, very important. Shoemaker, stick to thy last, right? Do what we do and do it well. The fourth thing I want to mention here, and I think it's, as I move towards the close of my keynote, I think we have to remember that as racers and race directors and as people involved in the sport, as media, volunteers, that we have to keep in mind that we have a sense of gratitude for what we get to do here. I've never let go of the fact that it's a privilege and an honor to be an adventure racer and to be part of this community. People like to belong somewhere, like to be a part of something. And we get to adventure race. We get to race direct. We get to do media. We get to volunteer. We don't have to. We choose to be here. We choose to take part in the sport. We choose to grow the sport. We choose to go to conferences like this. And as we move forward into the upcoming year, and as we take a break, and this is really the off season for many of us. For some of us, I have a race coming up in November in Pennsylvania. But with the World Series Championship behind us, we're beginning to sort of take a bit of a break now before the races start up again. We should really reflect upon the idea that being a part of this community is a privilege, that the stories that we get to create, the people we get to know, the things that we get to do, the places we get to travel, whether it be a short trip to a 6 to 8 hour race that's in a neighboring county or town or community, or whether it be a multi-day race on the other side of the world. The fact that we get to go into this community, and the fact that we get to do these things, that we choose to be here, we choose to be challenged, we choose to be part of this wonderful, magical, sometimes zany, sometimes competitive, sometimes really difficult, challenging sport known as adventure racing, is that it is a gift for us to be here. Our world today does not lack for noise. Our world today does not lack for distraction. But I will tell you, and I hear it time and time again when I talk to people in this sport, that when the race director calls the racers together and says it's time to start the race, and they have their pre-race briefing, and they talk about the course and the maps and the challenges and the need for teamwork and nutrition and taking care of our bodies and managing our time and knowing our disciplines, when all of those things happen, and when people are given a chance to do that, and those maps are given out, and the world becomes this becomes the whole world to somebody, that map and their teammates, and they look to their right, they look to their left, they know it's them as a team going into this course. That's an absolutely magical feeling. It's a magical feeling, and we can't forget that. We can't forget that adventure racing is many things. It's many, many things. But at its very, very core, it's about the human experience of people voluntarily challenging themselves in incredibly hard circumstances and doing things they thought they could never do. For those of you who may be getting cynical about the sport, I challenge you to go to the finish line of any race and to stand amongst the racers as they exchange stories and they talk about their challenges and what happened out there and where they succeeded and where they failed. And how they go home back into their day-to-day lives knowing that they can do challenging things. That what this sport does, this sport makes people better. And it teaches people that they could be more than they ever thought that they could be. And it happens here in America, and it happens in Europe and Asia, Australia, South America, Central America, North America, everywhere. And the last thing I want to say is this, is that we are so fortunate to be part of this community. And it is my goal, and I hope it's all of our goal, to carry this community forward, to make it better, to bring into the future an ethic and an idea that adventure racing is good for people, and race directing is good for people, and challenge is good for people. That, not to be too grandiose, but that in our small little way, We make the world a better place by letting people learn about themselves and their limits and what they can or they cannot do. And if we hold on to that as a central idea, the fact that this is what we get to do, and that we take care of people, we bring them across the finish line, and we show them they can be more than they ever could be, we have met our mission as members of the adventure racing community. It has been my honor, my absolute honor, to play a role in this conference. I look forward to seeing you at races. I look forward to talking to a lot of you through this thing and bringing your stories to the world. The Dark Zone is here for the community. The Dark Zone will always be free to the community, and we are grateful to be part of this conference. So thank you, Heidi. Congratulations, Stefan. Best luck, Santiago. Good luck, everybody. Be safe out there, and we'll see you on the course.